All right, hello and welcome. This is going to be the first in a series of videos that I'm doing on how to create a table view in your iOS app using Swift and Xcode. I'm using Swift 3, I'm using Xcode 8. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing, I need to pull up Xcode, so we're going to use a Spotlight search. And then we're going to create a new Xcode project. From here, we're going to do a single view application. We'll start simply. And we're going to call this favorite comics because I'm a nerd and that's how I operate. Then we want to make sure our language is set to Swift. We are setting our device for universal right here. Next. All right. Here's where I'm putting it. That looks like the folder that I wanted in. It's called Swift Projects. It's super original for naming, and we're going to create this. All right, so here's our blank project. Here's the super intimidating part where you look and you're like, oh my God, this project has nothing in it. Okay, so now, first thing I want to do is I want to go to my object library. That's this little space down here. On the right side, we've got all our utilities, object library, and I want to bring in a table view controller. Table, I'm just going to put in table and it'll pop right up. There we go, table view controller, because I want the whole, wow, there's some thunder in the background. That sounded pretty serious. All right, so I put in my table view controller. I'm going to shrink this a little bit more. Okay, so my table view controller is here. When I first start up the app, I want to see this table view controller. This is something that you would use for a news feed, a contact list, a number of things like that. We're going to see a list of my favorite comics in this app. So I want this table view to come up first. So we're actually going to move the storyboard entry point so that it goes and it starts the storyboard here in our table view. Now we've moved the storyboard entry point. We've got a table view in place. So let's go ahead and run our app. Anytime you make major changes to your app, you want to make sure that you're running your app to make sure that you did not break it. You don't want to put 100 changes into your app and then later go back and try and check it and find out change number 35 screwed it up, and you're not going to know that until you go digging around. Okay, so this here I can scroll through, sort of. You can see these thin little lines. This is my table view. I've got an empty table view. This is perfect. This is exactly what I want to see. Now, I know for my app, I need a lot more space than this. I need a picture over here. I'm going to have a label up here. We'll maybe add a description or like star rating or something like that in the middle here. So I definitely want more space. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on my table view. And from my table view, and you can select table view from the outline over here too. Occasionally it gets a little confusing when you're clicking on cells or table view or whatever. If I click here, I know I'm getting the table view. And then I want to come over here to my size inspector. And from size inspector, I want to change my row height. So here I can change this one at a time, and you can look, notice this changes as I go up. So my prototype cell, my base cell is changing. I'm going to go ahead and set this to 90. That's going to be my basic size for what I'm doing here. You might have something significantly different depending on what you want it to do. Okay, so now I want to talk more about the cell. We're going to have to come in and attach some code to the view controller, the table view controller, and everything else. We will do that later, one little piece at a time. So let's focus on just this prototype cell. This prototype cell is what it will be the basis for all of our cells. Every cell is going to be based off the structures that we put in here. So I'm going to need some code that will be able to change and affect this cell. That means I'm going to need a Swift file. So we'll go ahead and go up here to File, New, File, and I need a Cocoa Touch class. I want to make sure I capitalize this. Comics. These cells are going to be our comics. These will be the actual comics we choose from. So here, I name this, and I'm going to change the type now to table view cell. table view cell, and notice it adds table view cell to the end. So we always start a class name with a capital. That's just a good practice to get into. That's what Apple does if you look up their tutorials. And then this ends it. When you select this, it'll add table view cell to the end. That way we know what it is. This class, oh, it's a table view cell class. It just helps us out. Don't worry about XIB file right now. We want to make sure our language is Swift. All right, our targets, we want to make sure that we have our project as our target, favorite comics. We don't need these tests right now, so we'll go ahead and just create. Hey, and there's our code. Beautiful. So we want to put all of our Swift files together. It's just going to be nice and easy to look at as we start adding more and more to this, and maybe we'll have 3 or 4 Swift files, and we want them all in one place. It just looks cleaner. It's good practice. Okay, so next thing I want to do is I want to come here, select my cell, table view cell, and I'm going to come over to my size inspector again. I want to set my row height to 90. I'm going to have it match the row height of the actual table view. And I'm going to select custom because we're not taking the default. We're putting a custom row height in here. Next, I'm going to go to the attributes inspector, and I want to set my identifier. My identifier for the cell is going to be exactly what we put before. It's going to be comics table view cell. And this is an identifier that we will be able to use in our code. Now I want to come here and set my class. So when I set the class, now that I have comics table view cell as my class here, it's going to allow me to, if I click on this and I want to look at my assistant editor, now it's going to show me the code that goes with this cell. Awesome. We don't need that right now. Now, before we get going, before we stop with this particular piece of the tutorial, I want to get a few things in the prototype cell. So let's go ahead and add an image view, and we'll put it right up here, and we'll shrink it down so that it fits in the cell. So shrink and shrink. All right, there's our image view, and I'm going to add a label as well. And so we'll have our label right here. Let's zoom in a bit. And let's make the label the full width of this, so that if we have a long name, most of the name will actually appear. So now I'm highlighting the label. I'm going to go to my attribute inspector, and I'm going to change the name. And I'm just going to set this to name for now. So this is the name of the comic. I will also want to put in a default image. I want an image that shows up here. If there's no comic that goes in one of these slots, I want it to have a default image. I don't have any in my assets right now, so I'm going to open up my assets. And I'm going to go to some of these images that I selected. Hey. All right. I'm going to put that right there. Okay. And now I can go back to my storyboard, and on my storyboard I select my image view. Image view is selected, and I'm going to add my image. My image is going to be generic comic. That is going to be if there's no image that is told, if I make a cell and I don't tell it to put an image there, that is the default image that I'll come up with. So now let's run it. We've got a cell. The cell has code attached to it. We didn't do anything with the code. And then it's got the name and the image. So when I run this, I should see nothing. Because we did not tell the program to actually put this into view. We did not tell it to actually show the user this. And that's what we're going to get into in the next video. But that's all for this one. Video 2 should be available right after this.